Here on going to be released here on January 31st. We're really excited about this ability to do that. Might even have it surprisingly. Honey season starts a little bit early. Maybe we're able to drop this before the 31st. But excited to be able to start to produce this event. I've got with me my co-host, as it were, the Alan Richter to the Conan O'Brien, is Al Molnick. Al, why don't you spend a few minutes introducing yourself? Most folks know me as the author of Cybersecurity Third-Party Risk.
Sure. My name is Al Molnick. I work as a cybersecurity manager at Truist Financial. Roughly 30 years in the business. Really excited to be here today.
And really lucky to have Julie here on as, and I know her by Julie because we've been working together now for a couple of years, and it's really been a great partnership with her. So Julie she's the co-founder and CEO of Third Party Risk Association, and delighted to have her as the first guest on the first podcast. So Julie, you want to just introduce yourself and give a little background?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Julie Giaischi, so as Greg said, CEO, co-founder of the Third Party Risk Association. So just quickly, we are a not-for-profit organization, membership-based, and we really work to further the profession of third-party risk through knowledge sharing and networking. Before TPRA, I was actually an IT auditor for about 10 years, and then I moved to information security and developed a third-party risk management program for a company. And then I moved to a bank, and I was their third-party officer. So lots of practice in the field of third-party risk management and IT. So excited about the conversation.
And that's why I've been really comfortable partnering with you. Your whole board and everybody's really well versed in the industry. And it really is great to see an organization that's really geared towards the practitioners, is a not-for-profit, and really trying to help out. And the whole point of writing the book was similar to yours, right? I really wanted to up-level the profession, and I really see that TPRA does that. So we'll get into the first session, episode 1. Season episode 1 is cyber breaches and third-party risk management. And what I really wanted to cue up the conversation here was we've seen a huge increase. I think the numbers from the FBI were a 800% increase since 2019 of cyber activity and in particular incidents and breaches. And certainly most of us in the industry have seen this. And in particular, what I wanted to ask both my co-host and Julie in particular was, what are you seeing it? How do we deal with this in third-party risk management and vendors who are also getting breached quite a bit? You have Okta and LastPass as kind of latest examples. T-Mobile has been breached again, and I think that's an ongoing event with them as well. What does this say to you about the industry, and how can we better prepare for it? And Julie, as the guest, I'll give you the first pass.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm really seeing kind of 3 areas of certain attacks. So I'm seeing that threat actors are really finding and exploiting software, services, or dependencies, looking for those vulnerabilities. That to me says organizations aren't really patching as quickly as they should. And then they're also using backdoor open source software code to distribute malware. And then we're seeing a lot of poisoning of binary artifact repositories. So those are kind of the 3 things that we're seeing. And we get this question a lot, like once we kind of hear from a third party that they've been breached, what's next? And it's really, I always say that third party risk management isn't about the assessment. Anyone can assess a third party. It's really about the remediation and the follow-up. If you are working really hard to, determine what cybersecurity controls are in place in your third party, and you identify gaps, it's really addressing those gaps as quickly as you can, and making sure that they're evidencing that they've remediated certain things. That's key, because that's what it's all about. Otherwise, they're going to be breached again, and you knew that risk existed. So it's kind of a liability on your organization if you don't follow up in a timely manner.
Yeah, I like that emphasis on making sure that you close the issue. Anybody can find an issue to some extent, right? You can poke enough at a vendor's controls and your own to find the risk. It's really about closing the risk, closing that gap so that the risk is at 0 but minimized or lowered, right? Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a very Well, first off, Julie, sing it, sister. You're absolutely right. Find it, work with them, get those closed as quickly as possible.
Preacher and choir on that one.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for as many times as we've seen these things, the comment that came to mind was along the lines of, once you're breached, chances are good people are coming knocking again, right? Once these things happen. And so once you get hit once, chances are good you're on the skyline. They're going to keep coming at you and exploiting. And God forbid they should exploit the exact same thing over and over again, right? That's a terrible thing.
You leave your back door unlocked, you're going to, the thieves are going to figure it out and come back to the same door. Right? Exactly.
And I think you can look just, recent headlines. If you look at like T-Mobile, their recent piece, they were hacked, was it 2019? And then again a few days ago. And they're hiring people all over the place, possibly because of that. And that reminded me back with the Colonial Pipeline attack, when those folks got hit, they were looking for experts as well to help them out to get this done. And it just screams at me that, hey, you knew the issues were there. You just weren't able to close those gaps fast enough. So just an emphasis on that piece, right? Close those gaps, close those gaps.
There you go, Julie. You wanted to add to that? I was gonna add to it was to kind of bring both your points together. I think one is we do see a 30%. Oh, I'm sorry, Julie, if I was talking over you. The increase in your propensity to get hacked once you've been hacked the first time, I think is the most of the studies show you're 30% more likely to get breached in the subsequent year that once you've been breached. So once one of your vendors, assuming you're doing due diligence, you're not going to catch everything, and eventually, like I said, I think everybody's going to be breached. It's not enough to just point your finger and say you should have done something right. It's a partnership. You're supposed to be collaborating with your vendors. Vendors are not your adversaries; they're partners in success. So once a vendor is breached, it's don't just wag your finger at them and say, "What did you do wrong?" Partner with them to figure out what went wrong and have them fix it and uplift both yours and their organization security in that process, right? It's a partnership that I think a lot of us in the industry wish was more the case, right? There's a little bit of a love-hate relationship sometimes between the customer and the vendor on these assessments and the interaction with cybersecurity. But I think if you partner with vendors, they're much more likely to want to partner back, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
I agree with that. A good discussion. You guys want to add anything and wrap up?
Yeah, I think not only is it important.
All right. Go ahead, Julie.
Sorry, I must be on a delay. Not only is it important to partner with
it's okay
third parties, but also with internally with your departments. Third-party risk management is an enterprise-wide activity, and a lot of people don't realize that you're not just working, in a silo. You're working with your security teams. You're working with your disaster recovery teams. You're working with your incident response teams, because you really want that holistic vulnerability management program. You want it internally, and you want to make sure your third parties have it. So, some of the things, Greg, I know you'll probably talk about in future podcasts are like zero trust. That's an internal control, but it's for an external purpose. So there are certain things that you need to do internally within your own organization, but also you need to make sure your third-party risk management program has in place. And it's a delicate dance, I would say, because you both need to kind of be in tune with the specific controls that need to be in place, and you need to continuously monitor, not only internally, but monitoring logs and making sure your endpoints are secure and making sure you have good incident response capabilities, but externally as well, making sure your third parties have that in place, making sure they're monitoring their third parties, making sure that you have a secure network based on best practices and a good vulnerability management program. So it's both sides, and it's kind of hard to do if you don't have that good program in place and you haven't communicated it across the enterprise. There could be, gaps associated with that.
Yeah. All great points. And I think also emphasizing, we hear a lot of the heartburn online about the it's a huge ocean to boil. So make sure it's always a risk-based approach. You don't want to be spending the same amount of time on a low-risk vendor that you would on a high-risk vendor in comparison. So that's also a great way to approach it as well. This has been a good discussion. And it leads well into sort of the next topic, which was really you as the guest, Julie, kind of giving us a little bit more about what TPRA can do, Third-Party Risk Association can do for practitioners, advice in the field, events, other items that are coming up outside of TPRA, because I know you have a busy year schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of transition to that, I would say, number one for managers and teams is just to keep up to date with certain training. And you want to make sure your staff's knowledgeable. You want to make sure that they have the right training in place so that they can perform these assessments. Because if you're just a third-party risk management assessor and you don't have a technical background, but you're going in and you're asking these questions, you're not going to be able to read between the lines, when someone, presents you with a control and it's not at an acceptable level, or, there's a vulnerability behind it. There's other kind of follow-up questions that you need to ask. So Third-Party Risk Association actually created, in partnership with Greg, our third-party cyber risk assessor certification. And it's all about teaching people how to do that, how to assess from a cyber perspective the whole life cycle of a third party. So it's not just focused on the cyber assessment piece. It's also focused on planning and oversight, what you need in contracts. Before you even sign a contract, what should be in place? What kind of controls you need to assess? What are the definitions around certain things? Because, each company can have different definitions, all the way down to reporting. So how are you going to, with the information that you find, how are you going to present it to your teams to, make decisions on, remediate, get things done? So we have a whole cyber program on that you can visit, TPRassociation.org and find more information about that. And Greg, I know you're leading some of those training opportunities, so we're really happy to have you do that. Do you have anything to add with regards to the training?
Yeah, well, you were the genesis to that, because so I'd written the book and was trying to take a breather a bit because that was exhausting in of itself, and the book had gotten published, and then you and I were talking about something else, and you said, well, have you ever, your book kind of reads like a textbook, which I wasn't sure how to take at first, but I assume you meant it explained things well, which I hope the intent. And then, and you said, well, have you ever thought about doing a training course around it? And I said, yes, I have to some extent, but just like I said, I was just completing the book. So I was just trying to figure out what's the next step. And that's when we started discussing, how do we take that book, which we can't obviously use due to copyright issues, but also use it as a primer and a starting point for that training. So what I think the advantage was in not being able to just use the book itself was to create brand new content for the students that took not just the book, but lessons learned and things that we could improve upon and expanded on certain areas that were, I think, important for practitioners and hands-on. So there's the workshops at each of the end of the sections, right? That was important as an educator and also a consumer of training myself to learn from what I didn't necessarily like or wanted expanded upon in other trainings I had taken. So making sure there was some hands-on and not just a lecture for the number of hours, right? And emphasizing, I think, some of the soft skills that we can teach a lot of technical skills, and those are important. But a lot of the issues that we come up with on vendors is how to negotiate to get to do things with the vendor or to expand your reach with that vendor. And I found in a lot of the, your board was great in doing a dry run, right? And so we were able to do a look at it, get great feedback, and even make it a little bit better was to then drive those discussions into the training that feedback to say, hey, Greg, let's expand on some of those things so that folks know how to deal with the soft level issues that we often kind of just ignore. Hey, it's really important to do this with a tool and all this process stuff, but when it comes down to it, it's also relationships.
Yeah, I think what's great is your book deep dives into the how to do some of the certain technical aspects of it. And where we were able to come in and expand upon the entire life cycle of a third party with the cyber risk focus, kind of just added to what you already had. So It just covers, from start to finish, the life cycle of a third party from a cyber perspective and how to assess, at each layer, at each phase. So I think that is what was kind of special about our partnership in this. So that is something that we offer, as an association. The main thing is we really do work to further the profession through knowledge sharing and networking. And we do that by offering free membership to our practitioners. We wanted to make sure that it was available, that you had access to resources.
Did you say free?
I said free.
Honestly, I was laughing because it is a big deal. Almost everybody charges for membership, even if it's an association that you would think would welcome and want more membership. So I think it's an important.
Well, and as a member, I'd say even though it's free, it's a valuable membership, right? So I've got memberships I pay for that aren't nearly as valuable to go along with that, right? So it is a big difference because you can only put so much time towards things throughout the day, right? And it's important that you have high value time.
Yeah, and the reason why it is free, and we always wanted it to be free, we do have a paid membership if you want, to go to the in-person conference and have your ticket included. But it was really important for it to be free because the only way to have the community as a whole accept certain guidelines, tools, and templates is to make it available for everyone. Because, certain tools, templates that are currently out there, besides the cyber ones, besides the NIST and the COBIT, but there weren't any third-party risk management ones that were free. You have to pay a lot of money for it. And while those can be adopted, not everyone can afford that. So we wanted to make sure that what we were putting out there was by the community, for the community, and accessible to the community. So that is exactly why we have the free.
And your approach also is agnostic, right? I mean, in terms of approach, right? And that's the other thing that fits well with both how the training is developed that we worked on and the certification, as well as the way the documentation is created. It doesn't say. A lot of the other certifications and training, all that kind of stuff, is around a certain product delivery that organization delivers, right? And so I think the advantages to using and utilizing this is you don't have to adopt that particular organization's product or service. You can take what TPRA develops and adopt it to your own organization's existing tool sets. Because it isn't really about tools in some ways in the organization. It's about how you utilize those tools in a process that fits your framework and your risk appetite, right?
Right. Yeah, we recognize tools are important. We recognize that can help with automation, that can help with reducing strain on your resources. But the way that we approach everything, not just the CERT, but our training programs, our conferences, you're able to implement with any tool, or even without a tool. Because if you're a new program, you want to make sure you have a good process in place before you start purchasing tools. So we
very excellent point.
As well as life cycle of the third party.
Yeah, and sorry about the delay there. Sometimes I think you and I are saying the same. I'm like Al, or like go because that's exactly right. It's fun to see, fun to hear.
To reemphasize one of the things you said too, Julie, is around the training, right? You don't want your practitioners to show up and get fooled. Mm-hmm. An example of that, just to give you, and it's kind of a silly one, but was working with a company last week. They're trying to use AI to do automated assist for TPRA type stuff. And one of the things they brought up, we were talking about SOC reports, and they brought up that we said, well, are you able to find things in there and the rest? And they said, well, yeah. They said, actually, we found one once that came in one of their tests. It came in, it was a SOC report. It was a picture of a SOC. No. I was like, well, did it pass or fail? And they said, oh, well, it failed. Okay, good. It's a silly example, but it's one of those where when you show up on site, somebody has to know what right is when you show up. And sometimes you show up with these folks and they don't necessarily know either. So It's really important that the assessor does and they stay up to speed in doing that, or even if they're doing self-assessment, questionnaire, that type of stuff too, right? They've got to be able to do it. I was going to point out as well that one of the other key areas is that initial triage of a supplier, right? You really have to know which ones are your low risk, high risk, medium risk, or however you classify them to go in. And I've seen organizations that have a lot of issues just around that initial triage, just the initial classification to figure that out. I'm hoping that during your training, that's going to be something that comes up, is how to do that effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's to the hands-on, that's the hands-on piece, right? We have a, and this is a great, Al, you should really be the oh wait, he's the co-host. So yeah. And really this is the fun, that's why I'm laughing, because this has not been queued up for Al, but it does queue it up really well. Is we talk about the collaboration between TPRA and myself in the training, but we're borrowing what TPRA is helping produce within the industry on an IRQ, an inherent risk assessment questionnaire, as well as the broader TPRA questions that they're asking in that space, right? So when we talk about that, it's a nice partnership. They're creating these frameworks and these questionnaires to better the organization, and the training that we developed gives you hands-on experience with that. So you're not just walking back with theory to your organization, you're walking back with hands-on experience of having done some dry runs with your peers in these trainings, right?
Yeah, and the tools to take with you. So you mentioned that inherent risk questionnaire. That's free and available for anyone to download on our website right now. So if you're struggling with kind of understanding how to tier your third parties from a risk perspective, there's some great questions on our website. And they'll give you initial, calculations on risk. But you, as an organization, you should not take that at face value. You should look at the weights and see what your own, risk appetite is as a company, and change that based on that, because each company is different.
I wanted to follow up on something you said earlier there, Julie. Was you said that the membership is free. If you want to pay for the paid membership, includes the conference. Can you what is the paid membership cost and to include in the conference right now?
Yeah, so the paid membership.
I want to talk up the conference, because I did the one last year, and I'm definitely going to this year's. So I want to show the value, because I think your conference is awesome. So just cue that up. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So our paid membership is $199, very affordable. And it includes your ticket to the in-person conference, which is actually cheaper than the ticket to the in-person conference. Our in-person conference for a member is $250. So as a premium, you're already getting a discount. With that, you also get a discount on the certification program that we've been talking about. So you'll get premium member pricing for that. And then the other thing is, which was really important for us as an organization, to help third-party risk management leaders understand current news, current risks, current regulations out there, real time, and how to apply those to their own programs. So you'll get a third-party risk management leader informational briefing monthly that goes through what's happening in the industry, what's happening with regulations, and suggestions on how to incorporate those into your third-party risk management program. And then on top of that, you get, all the bells and whistles that a standard member gets as well, the meetings, all the industry special groups, access to the entire website. We have a Slack space forum. There's all kinds of stuff available to you on the website. And then the in-person conference is this April 24th through the 26th in Nashville. So we wanted to pick a really fun location. We actually polled a lot of the people from our last conference, which was in Austin, to see where they wanted to go, and Nashville was like the top choice. So we're really excited to be going to Nashville. The theme for this year's third-party risk roundup, of course, we had to have like a Southern kind of Western theme. Sure. So it's going to be really fun. We have 3 tracks. And then if you're interested in in-person training for the CERT, that'll be separate but available to you at the conference. We'll have 2 network events. We'll have VIP network experiences for certain individuals. We will have breakfast, lunch, snacks, and also a lot of sponsors. So if you're interested in tools and learning more about that, they will be available to you as well. And then really fun raffles and just having a lot of fun. Conferences, yes, they're about learning, but they're also about fun.
Well, I'll get this as an uncompensated endorsement.
Right.
So I loved it last year. I went. I was going to speak, right, and I did speak, and had a great time actually in that session speaking, because I got more out of it in some ways than I think I gave out of it, just because of the interaction for the when I teamed up with Rohan Ranadive, my TPRM leader from Truist, and we gave a joint interagency guidance, and it was great to see the interaction. But and I went expecting, and it was my first post-COVID conference, and I went to a couple more last year. Yours was the most fun. One, it was a smaller kind of environment, so but enough people to really get a lot out of it, right? So, I went to ICS Squared, had a great time, and I had a wonderful time. But the intimate environment at yours made it much more of a learning experience for me. Everybody was really forthcoming and sharing. It was great to commiserate as well as learn about the shared experiences we all have as TPRM practitioners. So it's well worth the expense as a practitioner to go. You'll spend more on hotel than you will on the ticket. And I don't mean that as a negative to go. I'm just saying that's a great deal, and you get a lot out of it. Most of these conferences, the ICS Squared it's not $250. Let's just put it that way, right? The others are all fairly expensive, so it's approachable. And I think that back to Al's point, it's a great value for your dollar to get out of it. So, highly recommend it, Julie, and great for your team. I think they did a great job last year. I'm looking forward to this year's.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure. Al, you wanted to? Did I talk over any of your questions, or you got something to follow up on?
Oh no. No.
Okay.
I was shaking my head. Yes. No, I agree.
No, I heard something rattling. I thought it was.
You heard something rattling? Yeah. That's what that was. Empty space.
So, Julie, I know we're coming up on time. Anything else you wanted to let the team know about who are listeners?
No, I would just say, the biggest resource that you have access to is just benchmarking off your peers. You don't have to recreate the wheel. If you're new, there's things out there. People have already gone through certain things. So just really benchmarking off your peers is, going to really help you grow your own program. And if you are one that feels like you are mature, there are benchmarking is important to kind of know what the trend is, what that next step is, what new technology is out there, because, your peers have the know. They're in, they're plugged into it. So, asking certain questions, it's just beneficial for all. So I really appreciate these types of podcasts too. I learn a lot from you guys and from our community. So it's awesome. Great job.
I appreciate that. Thanks. It's great. It's a pleasure to have you on as the first guest. And I'd asked my mom, but she said she wanted me to have more followers before she'd come on. So it's just you. Sorry. You want to go to the last? One of the things I wanted to, all kidding aside, was take away. Do the takeaways for each of these was rather than just have us chat for half an hour, which I thought was great topics and good feedback, and I learned a lot too. Was presenting to each of these just some follow-ups and lessons learned for folks to take away, right? So it's not just a 30-minute jam session, but hopefully we can also impart some particular takeaways for everybody. So rather than read each of these, I'm just going to let folks kind of consume them a little bit. But, Julia, I really appreciated where you went with it on the first part, especially, hey, you're here to mitigate risks, not just identify it. Let's make sure we're closing these risks out. I talk about it in the book. We talk about it in training. That's really what you're here for. Make sure that you're partnering with your third parties, right? We always talk about that, how it's a partnership, not an adversarial relationship. I want to emphasize as a hopefully as viewed as a leader in cybersecurity is stop pointing your fingers at people who get pawned. Everybody's going to get breached at this point. It's just sort of inevitable. And it's the whole premise around zero trust to some extent that everybody's talking about, right? You assume you're going to get breached. How do you minimize the blast radius? To some extent, that's what we're supposed to be doing as cybersecurity professionals and third-party risk management professionals is minimizing the blast radius. So let's, again, stop pointing the fingers at and sort of laughing at how they got hacked this time. And say, what can we do to collaborate? Some of that I think is we tend to take it the Schadenfreude to sort of experience with it a little bit of pleasure in somebody's discomfort. But if we get past that, we could all collaborate and learn better from breaches. That experience, I think, limits people's ability to, or wanting to share when they get breached. And I think if we can start to break down those barriers, we can, if we share more about how we got breached, we can prevent the next breach, right? So that's what I would encourage. Any last thoughts, Julie?
No, I think that's great. That's exactly, my thoughts exactly. So
Appreciate it. Okay. Al, you got any party thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really appreciate the conversation today. I think it's been great. I think if I was looking at some of these, the one that usually stands out the most to me, if it's not people, then it's the really easy stuff like that could have been patched. And so I would say that for most folks, hey, make sure that when you're talking to these people, when you're talking both internally and to your third parties, ask them, what is your patching? How effective is your patching program as it goes on? And I harp on that constantly. I probably will again, just so you know. But it's one of those where it's such an easy path just to do something about. And when you're partnering with your third parties, is just ask them, hey, what are you doing for that, and how effective is it to get that done?
Partnership.
That's right. A great point. And it is industry best practice to ask your third parties. You can ask them. You can even ask for evidence if they have a specific server even for you, or your data is located in a certain location, making sure that whatever they're providing you includes that. So
right.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the way to do that is get it in the contract. Just make sure
there you go.
Has that ability, capability. Yeah.
Exactly right. Well, it's been a great first episode. You have a great rest of the week, both of you. And again, thanks for agreeing to be on the first episode. And I think I appreciate your ability to be flexible and get on this call. It's been great, Julie. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Cheers.
See you guys.